Let's start now. The block universe. In 1908, mathematician Hermann Minkowski stood before an assembly of scientists and declared that space and time were not separate things. They were one single four-dimensional structure. He called it space-time. His former student Albert Einstein had already done the math. Minkowski gave it a meaning that physicists are still deeply uncomfortable with today. That meaning is the block universe. If space-time is one unified structure, then every moment that has ever existed or will ever exist is equally real right now. Your birth exists, your death exists. Every Tuesday afternoon you will ever live through already exists, permanently embedded in the geometry of the universe. The past didn't go anywhere. The future isn't waiting to arrive. Both are sitting there in the block, the same way distant cities sit on a map even when you're not visiting them. The problem is what this does to the present moment. That feeling you have right now, the sense that this instant is special, that only now is real, has no basis in physics. The equations of general relativity contain no variable for the present tense. There is no formula that makes your current moment different from any other point in the block. Every moment is equally real, equally permanent, equally frozen in the structure of space-time. You are not moving through time. You are a static pattern inside a crystalline structure that contains all of history at once. The you reading this, the you being born, the you dying, none of these moments is more real than any other. The flow of time is something your consciousness generates. The universe isn't providing it. And if every moment already exists in the block, then every decision you will ever make has already been made. Every loss has already occurred. Every joy has already happened. You are not living your life. You are a fixed coordinate in a structure that was never moving. The Wheeler-DeWitt Equation. In 1967, physicists John Archibald Wheeler and Bryce DeWitt attempted something that had never been done before. They tried to combine quantum mechanics and general relativity, the two most successful theories in all of physics, into a single equation describing the quantum state of the entire universe. What they produced was mathematically consistent, elegant, and deeply disturbing. The Wheeler-DeWitt equation contains no time variable. It does not describe how the universe changes from one moment to the next, because in this equation, there are no moments. The universe simply is. The equation treats the entire cosmos as a single static object, a wave function encompassing every possible configuration of matter and energy simultaneously, with no sequence, no before, and no after. For decades, physicists assumed this was a flaw, an artifact of an incomplete theory that would be corrected once quantum gravity was properly understood. Decades passed. No correction came. The equation remains timeless, and a growing number of physicists now argue this is not a bug, it is the answer. Time doesn't appear in the most fundamental equation ever written about the universe because time isn't fundamental to the universe. Carlo Rovelli, one of the founders of loop quantum gravity, has argued that the Wheeler-DeWitt equation is telling us something precise. At the deepest layer of reality, there is no before and after, no sequence, no change. What we experience as time is something that emerges from our particular position inside the universe, the same way temperature emerges from the collective motion of molecules. Temperature is not a property of any individual particle. It is a statistical pattern that only appears at scale. Time may be exactly the same kind of thing, real enough at our level, completely absent at the level where reality is actually constructed. The thermal time hypothesis. In 1994, physicists Alain Kahn and Carlo Rovelli published a proposal that reframed the entire problem. If the fundamental equations of the universe contain no time, they reasoned, then time must emerge from something else. Their candidate was thermodynamics. The thermal time hypothesis states that what we experience as the flow of time is entirely a product of incomplete information. We cannot track every particle in the universe, so we use statistical approximations, averages, probabilities, educated guesses about large collections of matter. This incomplete knowledge creates an asymmetry in our perception. We remember the past because it correlates with low entropy states we can reconstruct. We cannot remember the future because it correlates with high entropy states we cannot predict. Time flows in one direction, not because the universe demands it, but because our knowledge of the universe is fundamentally limited. A being with perfect knowledge of every particle in the universe would experience no flow of time whatsoever. They would see a static arrangement of matter and energy with no preferred direction, no past, no future, and no sense of one moment leading to the next. From that perspective, you would not appear to be moving through time. You would appear to be a fixed pattern in a frozen configuration, under the impression that things were happening. What makes this hypothesis particularly unsettling is what it says about consciousness itself. If time is generated by incomplete information, then your entire experience of being alive, the sensation of moving through moments, of aging, of watching the world change around you, is a symptom of ignorance. You experience time because you don't know enough. A sufficiently informed observer would look at your life the way you look at a photograph. Still, complete, going nowhere. The problem of time in quantum gravity. In 1991, physicist Carol Kukar published a comprehensive analysis of what had quietly become one of the deepest crises in theoretical physics. Every serious attempt to reconcile quantum mechanics with general relativity was producing the same result. Time kept disappearing from the equations. This wasn't the failure of one particular approach. It was a pattern that repeated across every framework physicists tried. Canonical quantum gravity eliminated time. Loop quantum gravity eliminated time. String theory struggled to recover it. The consistency of the result forced an uncomfortable question. What if time keeps vanishing from the equations because it was never in the physics to begin with? General relativity treats time as dynamic, a flexible fabric that bends and warps around mass and energy. Quantum mechanics treats time as absolute, a fixed external backdrop against which particles evolve. These two descriptions flatly contradict each other at the most basic level. When physicists attempt to merge them, something has to give. And what gives, every single time, is time itself. Lee Smolin of the Perimeter Institute has argued that this is the deepest unsolved problem in physics. Not because the mathematics are intractable, but because the mathematics keep delivering an answer that no one wants to accept. Every serious road toward a unified theory of physics leads to the same destination: a universe where time is not a fundamental ingredient. Physicists have spent decades trying to reinsert time into the equations. The equations keep removing it. The universe at its deepest level appears to have no use for the one dimension we consider most essential to existence. And the most troubling part is not that one theory suggests this. It is that all of them do. Julian Barbour's Timeless Universe. In 1999, physicist Julian Barbour published a book called The End of Time, and proposed something most scientists considered simply unthinkable. Time, he argued, does not merely appear to be an illusion from our limited perspective. It literally does not exist at any level of reality. What exists instead are what Barbour calls nows, individual configurations of the entire universe, each one complete and entirely self-contained. Each now contains within it the appearance of a past. Your memories, fossil records, light from distant stars, all of these exist as structures inside a single, static configuration. Not as evidence of previous moments that actually occurred. There were no previous moments. There is only this arrangement of matter and energy that happens to contain patterns which look like history. Barbour replaces time with a landscape he calls Platonia, an abstract mathematical space containing every possible configuration of every particle in the universe. Each point in Platonia is a complete now. None is before or after any other. None causes any other. They simply exist, scattered across an infinite dimensional space like coordinates on a map that no one is traveling through. The you reading this word has no physical connection to the you who read the previous word. Each is a separate, self-contained configuration of the universe that includes within it the internal structure of apparent memory. You are not a continuous being moving through time. You are a series of disconnected snapshots, each one containing the illusion of continuity, with nothing between them. No thread connecting one version of you to the next. Just frozen moments scattered across a timeless landscape, each one convinced it is part of a story that doesn't actually exist. CPT, Symmetry, and the Directionless Universe. In 1955, physicist Gerhard Lüders published a proof that became one of the cornerstones of modern particle physics. The CPT theorem demonstrates that the fundamental laws of nature remain completely unchanged if you simultaneously reverse three properties: charge, parity, and time. Flip every particle to its antiparticle, mirror the spatial coordinates, and run time backward, and the physics are identical. Nothing in the equations can tell the difference. This has been confirmed by every experiment ever conducted at the fundamental level. No violation of CPT symmetry has ever been observed. The implications are direct and uncomfortable. If the laws of physics work identically forward and backward in time, then time has no inherent direction at the level of fundamental reality. The arrow of time, the fact that eggs break but don't unbreak, that people age but don't grow younger, that the past feels fixed while the future feels open. None of this is written into the equations governing quarks and electrons. Every physical process that can happen forward in time can happen in reverse with equal validity. The universe's most basic components have no preference for which way time flows. The arrow of time is not a fundamental law. It emerges at larger scales through thermodynamics and entropy, the way an optical illusion only appears when you step far enough back from the canvas. Up close, in the fundamental equations, time runs both ways equally. Your deep sense of temporal direction, the feeling that yesterday is definitively gone and tomorrow is genuinely coming, is a macroscopic pattern imposed on a microscopic reality that recognizes no such distinction. The direction of time is something you bring to the universe. It is not something the universe contains. The Rietdijk-Putnam Argument. In 1966, philosopher Hilary Putnam and physicist C.W. Rietdijk independently published papers that used Einstein's special relativity to dismantle the concept of the present moment. The argument is simple, follows directly from established physics, and has never been successfully refuted. According to special relativity, simultaneity is relative. Two events that happen at the same time for one observer happen at different times for an observer moving at a different velocity. There is no universal now. What counts as the present moment depends entirely on your speed and direction of motion. This becomes significant at cosmic distances. For an observer on a planet in the Andromeda galaxy, moving at perfectly ordinary speeds relative to Earth, their present moment on Earth could differ from yours by weeks. Their now might include events on Earth that from your perspective haven't happened yet, or events you consider already firmly in the past. The Rietdijk-Putnam argument proves that those events are equally real. If your future is already present for some observer, and that observer's reality is no less valid than yours, then your future already exists. It is not waiting to happen. It is already there, as fixed and permanent as anything you remember. This is not speculative philosophy. It follows directly from special relativity, one of the most thoroughly tested theories in the history of science. Every GPS satellite and every particle accelerator confirms the framework from which this conclusion is drawn. The present moment is not a universal feature of reality.
Retrocausality and the future affecting the past. In 2012, physicist Hugh Price at the University of Cambridge published work arguing that quantum mechanics might require retrocausality, the ability of future events to influence past ones. This was not mysticism. It emerged from a rigorous analysis of Bell's theorem and quantum entanglement, and the mathematics that supported it were unambiguous. The traditional view of causation treats time as a one-way street. The past causes the present causes the future. Causes always precede their effects. Price and his colleague Ken Wharton demonstrated that this assumption is not required by physics. It is imposed by human intuition. The equations of quantum mechanics work equally well, in some cases better, if future boundary conditions constrain past events. Experiments support this in disturbing ways. In delayed choice quantum eraser experiments, first proposed by Wheeler in 1978 and realized in laboratories by Yoon-Ho Kim in 2000, measurements made after a particle has already been detected appear to retroactively determine what path that particle took. The choice made in the future reaches back and alters the past. The particle's history changes based on a decision that had not yet been made when that history was occurring. If the future can influence the past, then causation does not run in one direction. Events don't flow from past to future in a neat chain. They exist in a web of mutual influence where every point affects every other point, regardless of temporal order. The idea that one moment produces the next, that the past builds the future, is not a law of physics. It is a story we tell ourselves to make sense of a reality that recognizes no preferred causal direction. Time isn't an arrow. It is a fabric, where every thread is pulling on every other thread at once. The Presentism-Eternalism Debate. In 2009, physicist and philosopher Craig Callender published a comprehensive analysis of one of philosophy's oldest and most consequential questions. And the answer emerging from modern physics was one that most people would find deeply unbearable. The question is simple. Does only the present moment exist, or do all moments in time exist equally? Presentism, the view that only now is real, has been humanity's default assumption for millennia. The past is gone, the future hasn't happened. Only the present exists. It is the foundation of free will, moral responsibility, memory, anticipation, and the basic human experience of being a person alive in the world. And modern physics has spent the last century systematically destroying it. General relativity eliminates the universal present moment. The block universe makes all times equally real. Quantum gravity eliminates time from its fundamental equations. The Rietdijk-Putnam argument proves that simultaneity is observer-dependent.
Each of these results independently undermines presentism. Together, they build an overwhelming case for eternalism, the position that all moments in time exist with equal reality. Past, present, and future are equally real, equally fixed, equally permanent. The truly disturbing aspect of eternalism is not that the future already exists. It is that becoming itself is an illusion. Nothing ever happens. Nothing ever changes. The universe does not evolve from one state to another. It simply exists as a complete, static, four-dimensional object containing every event that has ever occurred or will ever occur. Your sense that things are unfolding, that the world is happening around you, that you are becoming something you were not before, is a local perceptual artifact generated by a consciousness embedded in the block. You feel alive the way a character on page 200 of a finished novel feels alive, unaware that page 300 already exists, that the story is written, and that nothing they do changes the text. The Emergence of Time from Quantum Entanglement. In 2013, physicists Don Page and William Wouters proposed an experiment that was later realized at the Istituto Nazionale di Ricerca Metrologica in Turin, Italy. The results dismantled assumptions about time that most scientists had never seriously thought to question. The experiment demonstrated that time is not a fundamental feature of the universe. It is an emergent property of quantum entanglement. Two entangled particles were placed in a system where an external observer could measure the overall quantum state. From outside the system, nothing changed. The total quantum state was static, timeless, and frozen, exactly as the Wheeler-DeWitt Equation had predicted. But from inside the system, one particle could use the other as a reference point and generate the experience of temporal evolution. Time emerged from the relationship between entangled subsystems within a fundamentally timeless whole. The universe viewed from outside is a single, unchanging quantum state. Nothing happens, nothing flows, no moment precedes any other. But observers embedded within the universe, entangled with the systems around them, produce the experience of time through those entanglement relationships. Time isn't something the universe has. It is something created by being part of it. This experiment didn't just suggest time might be an illusion. It demonstrated the precise mechanism by which the illusion is produced. Entanglement between an observer and the observed creates correlations that the observer interprets as temporal sequence. Remove the observer and time vanishes. The universe returns to its true state, a static, eternal, changeless quantum object with no past, no future, and no present. You are entangled with the particles around you. That entanglement generates your experience of moments passing, of seconds ticking, of life moving from birth to death. The flow of time is a quantum artifact created by your relationship to surrounding matter. Step outside that relationship and there is no flow, no sequence, no before or after. Only a silent, motionless totality. You don't exist in time. Time exists in you.
The world is full of hidden stories, and here at Paint Facts, we reveal the most impressive ones. So subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because the next fact might just surprise you.